Eric, could you please describe some of your UK activity? What is the status of works performed so far, and what are the results as far as the UK is concerned?
Well, so far in the UK, we've drilled 3 vertical stratigraphic wells, taking core and testing on that. We've done 5 frac stages in one of the wells, and got some gas flow on that. And right now, we're going back and doing environmental impact assessments and setting up where we can have at least a couple of well pads with multiple wells on them, and to start drilling some horizontal wells and fracturing and testing those.
How about geology?
Pardon?
Geology is promising?
Yes, the geology is very promising. I think probably one of the lower risk factors in the whole operation is actually the geology itself. There's definitely a lot of gas in the shale, and we can tell that from the cores that we've taken and from the testing that we've done. The question, of course, is in the area that we're exploring, it's about 1,200 square kilometers. We've only put in 3 wells. We've done 3D seismic over only about 100 square kilometers of that. So also in our plans is also to step out from that core area, or the area that we have the 3D seismic over, and do some more stratigraphic wells and some more testing outside of that. And I mean, certainly if we were in North America, we'd have drilled a lot more wells in a lot bigger area. Here, with the cost of drilling and the prices a little bit higher, you're trying to minimize that a little bit and try and gain as much information as you can basically from a smaller area.
We all have heard that the UK government is trying to encourage investments in shale gas. Is this something that you already experienced, or this is something in draft legislation? And how would you assess these encouragements?
Well, I mean, the UK government is trying to encourage the industry. I mean, there's certainly been some statements by the various ministers, and they've announced trying to change the tax regime a little bit to be able to encourage early investment. And so overall, the government's definitely on the right track and trying to get things moving. They've started a new branch of government, the Office of Unconventional Oil and Gas, and again, that's to try and encourage the development and to bring some of the regulators together to make sure that everything's getting covered and to be able to move everything ahead that way.
So this would be mostly tax incentives or the royalty incentives, right?
What they've announced is a tax incentive, okay, but the probably more important part is like the Office of Unconventional Gas, where they're trying to streamline the regulatory process a little bit and try and to speed up the time it takes to be able to start one of these projects and to get into the drilling mode. I mean, right now, it's taking longer than it did 2 years ago, but that would be, I think, a temporary thing, and the government's definitely trying to speed that up and to condense some of the permitting and the planning process.
Okay. How about those skeptics about the shale gas in Europe? In the U.S. it's a different regulatory regime, ownership of rights to minerals. And would you agree that the shale gas in Europe is something that is not possible, or it's?
If we thought it was not possible, we certainly wouldn't be investing the money that we are to try and get it to work. I mean, it's obviously a different regime, and things are different, and the ownership of the gas and things are different. But even in North America, or certainly Canada is similar to that. But in the U.S., not every surface owner owns the gas rights underneath. Sometimes it actually makes it more difficult. One of the things that I think is an advantage in Europe is the way the licensing and the way the distribution of the areas that the companies can work. So, where in the U.S. sometimes it becomes less efficient because all the operators are fighting over the same acreage, and sometimes you can't actually drill in the most efficient way. Whereas here, with the licensing structure and the way licenses are set up, you can optimize the way you set up your development and your pads and your wells, and a little better way. Whether the landowner gets money directly on minerals, on a royalty or not, that's a little bit different. That comes up quite a bit, but I don't think it's a major stumbling block or certainly not something that stops everything. To the operator, you're paying that money out either in taxes or royalties, so it's not such an incentive that way. And then, of course, in the UK, we've announced, and the government's promoting a fund, so that when we hydraulically fracture a well within the local area, we'll put £100,000 into a fund, a local fund. There's a lot of debate right now as what constitutes local. Is it the county level or 2 houses down level, right? And nobody actually knows what that actual area is. And then, we've also announced that after we actually make it to production, assuming we can get past the exploration stage and into the production stage, then 1% of the revenue also goes back into that local area. And again, the debate right now is what constitutes local and how big an area is that? Is it? And I think every council from every size, all in the area, is all trying to negotiate for the biggest share. And I think that's a positive on trying to incentivize local communities to have some of the shale gas operations in their area.
So I understand that nobody so far proposed for the part of the royalties for actually surface owners, just for the communities as such, right? For the local community, not for the surface owners, because this could be something that could also attract the investors and make it more attractive for people.
Yeah, we haven't had anything for the individual surface owner, but in our case, and certainly in the UK, the individual surface owner where the well pad is compensated, right? We rent and lease the land and that off of them, and we have to negotiate with them on an individual basis, and they don't have to let us on their land, so we have to basically make a deal well enough with them that they're happy with that, and for the community fund, that is part of the debate, is how far down you drive that fund. Do you take it to the individual level, or the people whose land, say, the well goes under type of thing, or is it more, a certain percentage goes to the county and then some to the smaller district, or all the way down to the people? And that's part of the debate right now, is how to push that money around, and of course everybody wants the biggest share. So. And we try to stay out of that debate. That's not really up to Cuadrilla and the operators. That's more of a government function at that point.
Mm-hmm. How about the EU regulation and their impact? EU regulations and their impact on your operations in the UK and in Poland and a few other European countries, and environmental impact assessment?
Yeah, the EU regulations are basically being integrated into, say, the Environment Agency regulations and stuff like that in the UK. So it's... I don't know. I think there's some debate sometimes within the regulatory agencies on how to interpret some of the EU regulations. Some of them are pretty, pretty broad and not very specific on some things. It's pretty easy to have different interpretations on some. But I think that's up to the local regulators and certainly, in our case, the Environment Agency and the Health and Safety Executive and that type of thing.
No, but at least in Poland, there is a big discussion about the environmental impact assessment and prospecting and exploration phase. So basically, for drilling a exploration well, you would need to have an environmental impact assessment, and that's what the European Commission is proposing, and that creates a big debate because it may last for a year to prepare for environmental impact assessment full scale. And how this could affect your operations in terms of drilling?
Obviously it slows everything down, and it does take about another year. And that's the phase that we're in right now, as we're going back and doing environmental impact assessments on the areas. Now, in our case, in the UK, the size of the pad that we would have required an environmental impact assessment anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for some of the single one-off exploration wells, in the past, and I think currently even in the UK, the stratigraphic wells, they don't require an impact assessment in the UK right now if the location size is a certain size and it's a temporary well, and so if you're going to drill it, plug it, abandonment, and restore the land to the farmland or what it was before, right now there isn't environmental impact assessment required. But certainly for the bigger pads or multi-well pads with production and that, then, I mean, there's always been environmental impact assessment, so it doesn't really change that a whole lot.
Okay. How about the earth tremors? Because each country in Europe has its own specificity in terms of public acceptance and public denials, and in some countries this is waters, in some this is it's earth tremors, in some it's basically none in my backyard, and I understand that this was a pretty major issue over in the UK. Was it already resolved, or how you try to address it to the public?
Yeah, so back in 2011, when we were doing the hydraulic fracturing on the pre-salt well, the first shale well that we did, there were 2 earth tremors, I guess, or earthquakes, a 2.3 magnitude and a 1.5 magnitude. And after those, we had to stop operations, and we did a geomechanical study and had quite a few of the experts put together a report on what actually happened, how do you prevent that, how do you prevent that type of thing from happening? Is it common or uncommon type of issues? And that went back through the UK government. It took about 18 months actually before they approved hydraulic fracturing to let hydraulic fracturing start up again. But when you look at the information and look at the data, I mean, for one, the tremors are extremely small. It's about the same as a lorry going past the house or a truck going past a building type of thing. So I mean, they're non-damaging. You can talk to like the British Geological Survey and those guys, and they will say that, or they have said that the magnitude is far too small to cause any damage. But still, it's an issue that we want to make sure. Say it doesn't happen. It doesn't make the well better, but it certainly makes a PR better and public acceptance harder. And so we put in place and through the government in the UK and DEC actually is kind of regulating now and it's basically called a traffic light system. It's similar to what the geothermal industry uses, and some other industries that have man-induced seismicity, and basically it can tell you before you have an event that's say over 0 or over 1, you can see some of the really small stuff, and you can change your operations or flow back the well or change pressures, and just to prevent that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Keep talking about the public acceptance. I remember that some time ago when I went to the UK to speak at the Shale Gas conference, there was a big crowd of people shouting what a fracking mess and frack you and all those not very friendly slogans, and it was sort of different from the Polish acceptance. There was a general Polish acceptance is higher than in the UK. Is this something that is changing over? It is something that is managed, or it's going up and it's increasing, like sort of not satisfaction with the shale gas prospecting and exploration in the UK?
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the, I mean, there are various surveys that come out that are judging public acceptance, and they've roughly stayed the same. I mean, it'll go up a little bit on the, let's say, the anti-group for a little bit, and then it'll come up a little bit on the positive group. But typically, the people that are say they're extremely pro and the people that say they're extremely against are actually very small groups on both ends. Mm-hmm. And then there's this giant chunk in the middle that don't even know what shale gas is, and which is pretty amazing sometimes when you see how many times it's been on the front page of the newspaper, and some people have never heard of it. And but I think the overall acceptance is probably trending towards more positive. Mm-hmm. I think there's still a small group of very vocal, active protesters that will show up at a well site or show up at a conference or something like that. But in the big scheme, there's usually not very many. Certainly at the conference, there's half a dozen people or a dozen people will come up and hold banners, type of 50, thing. Yeah. And I think that's just part of what we have to do, and what the government has to help out a little bit on is basically educating the public and telling that big chunk in the middle that doesn't really know anything about how the electricity market works or where their gas comes from that heats their home and how that's generated. I think we have to basically get that message out a little bit more.
Okay. Our title of our interview is "What is needed to commercialize the UK resources?" So, what is really needed? Is it just time or money?
Yeah, time and money, that always helps. And but you know, a lot of it is the time, and it's the government working to streamline the regulations a little bit, and which is what they're doing, and basically to be able to drill a few of these wells and have some wells out there that people can come to and say, well, you know, that's what all the fuss about is that one little well, we didn't even know it was there. And you know, some of the producing fields in the UK, I mean, they've been outside a village for decades, and you can go to the village and half the people don't even know that there's an oil field right beside them. And so, you know, once we get to the point where we can actually show some people what the fuss is all about, and they realize that it isn't that much, then I think that'll help out quite a bit too.
But they're just 3 wells, as you said, right? It's not that much. I mean, we do have 51 in Poland, but how would you compare it in terms of sort of motivation to drill?
I mean, the motivation is pretty high. I mean, the 3 wells are the 3 wells that we've drilled. Okay, and there's other companies that have drilled some wells too. I don't know what the exact well count is now. I know iGas is drilling now. Third Energy's drilled some wells. Rathlin's drilled some wells. Celtic is getting ready to drill. I think Dart's announced that the program that they're going to drill some wells. So I think the last number I heard from one of the ministers is like 30 to 40 wells over the next few years. Mm-hmm. Is what they expect from the various companies that they've talked to in the UK. So,
just while guessing, where the production in European could start first in Europe? In what country? Just general. Obviously, it's subject to geology.
I think it's a pretty good race between the UK and Poland, but I don't know who's going to win at the moment.
Okay.